Oh, God. Oh, jeez. Oh, yeah. This is excellent. The critics were right. Snappy and obscene. The writing is top shelf. Here's my favorite part. How much can you change for someone you love? How much can you change for someone you love? I guess we're all here for the same reason. To consider this question, how much can you change for someone you love? And our study guide is my novel, The Squid and the Spaceman. Now, The Squid and the Spaceman is a dysfunctional love story that explores the fluid nature of intimacy, independence, and bodily functions, while asking, how much can you change for someone you love? Imagine that it's 2015. That year, Boston got a lot of snow, almost 10 feet, a record. Also in 2015, the Patriots were in the news. Oh, there was something about them cheating again and deflating the footballs to get a better grip. And one of their players, this guy Aaron Hernandez, got convicted of murder and sent away for life. But the important thing, the Patriots won their 4th Super Bowl. But also in 2015, the city was being overrun by gender trenders, biotech hipsters, trust fund poets, and artisanal pickle shops. 2 tone-deaf 50-somethings, our heroes in this story, unhappy with the city's transformation, meet and fall in love. Randall is chronically single. Jackie doesn't date men, she marries them. He's Jewish and trying to reinvent himself as an artist. She's Chinese American and drives a muscle car. They're both struggling with their ethnic identities and worried that they're aging out of the local dating pool. Okay, just to be clear, my name is Randy Ross. This character's name is Randall Burns. So this story is not about me, and I never dated anyone named Jackie, okay? So as I mentioned, they're both worried that they're aging out of the local dating pool. The local dating pool. The local dating pool. Have I mentioned the local dating pool? Okay. That is a photo of me. My girlfriend some years back dressed me up for Halloween. Her name was not Jackie. Okay, so again, this is a fictional story, has nothing to do with me. So all of you lawyers out there can just relax. Now, if this story were a movie, I would suggest a nebbishy Ben Stiller for the guy Randall and an edgy, fast-talking Margaret Cho for the woman Jackie. But since Ben Stiller was busy tonight, I'm going to fill in and give you a first-person account of the night Randall met Jackie. Tonight, I am the featured performer at the Harvard Square Storytelling Hour. The event has been running for 50 years, long before the Moth Radio Hour was a pupa. Spalding Gray once performed here. Boston area celebrities like Mike Birbiglia and Eric Bogosian still pop in and test new material. 30 minutes before showtime, I grab a beach chair in the great room of the Co-Living Commons. Now, the Co-Living Commons was a communal house, previously known as the Commons House, before it rebranded to be in line with the rest of Massachusetts, where everything is now co or bi or poly. A few feet away, a woman wearing a flannel muumuu and tivas with wool socks adjusts her microphone on the small stage. As she bends to add a log to the fireplace, her buffalo plaid rump assaults my sightline. But instead of engaging in snarky internal commentary, I remind myself that it's 2015 and yes, I skim the memo on inclusivity and the new non-standard notions of beauty. I also remind myself that she's probably the MC. I finger 3 Ricola honey drops in my pocket that I plan to dissolve in my mouth at 3-minute intervals. You see, 3 is my lucky number. It's also the number of Red Sox championships since the year 2000, and the atomic number for lithium, which might have saved my last relationship if someone had remembered to take their medication. But I don't have time to dwell on the savagery of middle age, because the room has now filled up with 30 or so people seated on various couches, bean bags, weight benches, and tatami mats facing the stage. The MC lumbers into the spotlight and reads my bio from a scrap of loose leaf paper. Tonight's featured performer is Randall Burns. Randall is a writer, performer, and web consultant. His fiction and humor have appeared in the Vermont Quarterly, the Huckamuck Swamp Rat, the Bag Slam Review, Bean Flicker Magazine, the Spooge Review, Itch, and the Boston Herald. His short story, Smells Like Fish, was a finalist in the 2013 Brown Eye Adult Fiction Contest. His novel, Skid Marks on the Ceiling, was published by Sweet Diesel Press. Tonight he's going to do a story entitled One Day in Thailand. Please give a mindful, heart-centered welcome to Randall. No matter how many times I perform, my body responds the same way when I'm announced. Leg numbness, intestinal contractions, waves of burning pain, debilitating fatigue, dizziness, fever, hopelessness, paranoia, and suicidal thoughts. But eventually, I always make my way onto the stage. Tonight, as I'm adjusting the microphone, I notice the guy in the front row who seems particularly interested in the zipper of my khakis. Is it just the pants or is it the whole outfit? Dress shirt, dress shoes. Well, everyone else is wearing fleece, flannel, or camo, more appropriate for varmint hunting or panhandling. There is one lone exception, an Asian woman in the back row wearing a black bowler, fitted suit, and crimson lipstick. She smiles when she sees me looking her way. I look away to refocus. One day in Thailand. Bangkok. Bangkok. The name alone sounds skeevy, and from the moment I get off the plane, I'm on high alert. I'd read about the deep-fried tarantulas, tuk-tuk scammers, and locals that play volleyball with their feet. The decor in the airport doesn't help either. Smirking Buddhas, sneering Buddhas, a gang of Buddhas pummeling a three-headed snake. As I clip along, my mind wanders to what I had for dinner, my old car, my new skis. Once I hit cruising speed, I switch to autopilot and survey the crowd. The Asian woman is looking on, eyes wide. I send a few lines her way. She responds by peeling off one sleeve of her jacket and then the other to reveal a shimmering blouse and a slice of collarbone. Whoa. Wow. I hear myself stutter, a skip, a lapse, a 404 not found error, the blue screen of death. I look everywhere for the next line, the ceiling, the floor, the moo-moo, any place but the collarbones. I repeat the stuttered phrases under my breath, hoping they'll restart the feed. I blow into the microphone and repeat the stuttered phrases out loud. A few words surface, then a sentence. Not sure where it goes, but I go with it. Eventually, the punchline is up ahead. I deliver it, pause and let it land. The Asian woman is laughing out loud. The crowd joins in. Back in my beach chair, I'm pleased and relieved, craving a beer, a cigarette, and a nice long visit to the lavatory. After the MC's closing remarks, the guy who stared at my zipper heads my way. The Asian woman, wearing her jacket, follows. The guy says, I liked your piece. But before I can say, well, you want to buy my book? He says, I've been to Thailand. I know this type. He's not interested in what I have to sell or say. He just wants to relive his trip to Thailand. Sure enough, he prattles on about Soy Cowboy and Pat Pong and Bangkok's other red light districts, unconcerned that there's an Asian woman sitting next to him. As he's rhapsodizing about an all-night back rub at a spa named Tugs, two amber fingers appear behind his head. The Asian woman winks at me. I wink back. Eventually, the guy says something about going out for drinks with some other people. I point to the woman and say, I'll go if you go. So who are these people, Randall and Jackie? Obviously, no one that I know. But here's a personality inventory for the narrator, Randall Burns. Family. Mother and stepfather, deceased. Mother died of lung cancer, even though she never smoked. Stepfather died of heart disease, even though he ran marathons. An uncle, recently distressed over a divorce, chained himself to a tree on the Appalachian Trail and was found 6 months later, picked clean. One sibling, an older stepsister named Harriet, who once sent Randall to elementary school wearing lipstick. Another time, Harriet gave Randall one of Mother's red sleeping pills. Randall woke up in time for dinner the next day. Harriet also taught Randall a game called Tell Me If This Hurts. Once Mother saw the cuts and bruises on Randall's arms, Harriet was sent away to a special girls' finishing school in northern Vermont. Education and career. At age 13, Randall got his first job working in an animal hospital. Okay, that is a photo of me, but that's not my dog. The guy who trained Randall was a junkie on methadone. The junkie taught Randall how to sniff the nitrous oxide used to sedate the animals. Randall and the junkie smoked pot, sniffed nitrous, and cleaned animal cages. They had stone discussions about dog shit. The junkie said it smelled like shepherd's pie. Randall said, no, it smells like beef with oyster sauce. The junkie said, no, 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 it smells like shepherd's pie. And Randall said, no, 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 it smells like beef with oyster sauce. Things went downhill from there. College, job as a magazine editor, layoff as a magazine editor, a trip around the world that mostly sucked, and a novel that barely sold any copies. Clearly, he's going nowhere. But considering that half the world goes to bed hungry every night, he's doing okay. Okay, just to be clear, that is a photo of me, and I'm sitting next to my girlfriend. Her name was not Jackie. Relationship history. 56, never married, but not for lack of trying. Recent experiences on Match.com. After searching on thin, artsy, and age 45 to 60, the results. A tall brunette with a handle, cares too much. Her profile. I adopted a blind kitten, a three-legged greyhound, and an autistic child of color. Family-oriented, daughter's my best friend, love my new grandchild. Cuddly, glass half full, always smiling. 3 is my lucky number. Let's be silly together. She sounds pathetic, but she shares Randall's lucky number. He messages her. She never responds. A second woman with the handle Drop Dead seems edgy and has a small tush. Her profile. Not sure what I'm doing on this website. It was my daughter's idea. If you're a liar, cheater, or would sleep with your girlfriend's blonde cousin from New Jersey, don't message me. Randall messages her. She never responds. After 6 months of this, Randall begins to wonder what's wrong with him. So he turns to the internet for some answers. And the first thing he finds is something called the fish theory. You see, fish are not attracted to bait that is healthy and moving smoothly through the water. Fish are attracted to bait that jumps, quivers, and zigzags due to some type of distress. Apparently, Randall is part fish and goes for erratic, ziggy women who have moods that flop around like a mackerel on a hot sidewalk. Over the years, he dated so-called stable women, but he just never got hooked. In his 30s, he dated a stable woman named Carol, but after a few months, he wanted to break up. He was tired of her constant cheerfulness, which struck him as phony, and her moods, unlike his, never zigged or zagged. But he was also tired of being alone, so he went to see his therapist, Dr. Moody. Dr. Moody suggested that Randall stick with her and sit with the discomfort. But being with Carol was trying to see how long he could hold his breath. When she put her arm around him, he felt nothing. After sex, they had nothing to talk about. Worse still, she was a nice person, and he felt really guilty. Every week he'd go into Moody's office. Can I break up with her now? And Moody would say, just give it another week. But Randall's attraction to volatile women doesn't really explain why he's still single. Lots of crazy people marry. Judging by the divorce rate and friends he knew who had tied the knot, marriage was no barometer of mental health. But in his darkest hours, like those Saturday nights when he was at the movies by himself and sitting in the handicap seat, he had to wonder what was wrong with him. The valency theory. You see, certain atoms have the ability to bond with lots of different types of atoms. Other atoms are less valent and can only bond with a few types of atoms. Apparently, Randall was the less valent type and could only bond with certain kooky, volatile atoms which also seemed to seek him out. When they did connect, the result was an unstable, combustible molecule that eventually blew up. Case in point, Ricky. Randall met Ricky at a barbecue in Cambridge, Massachusetts about 10 years ago. She had straight shoulder-length hair and a barbed wire tattoo around her arm. The tiny lines around her mouth indicated that she was probably about his age. Now, this barbecue was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, so it was a vegetarian, gender-neutral, low-carbon footprint affair. Now, Randall noticed Ricky because she had brought a huge bloody porterhouse. It looked like a prop for a slasher movie. He watched as she wrestled the thing onto the grill. She glanced at him. She glanced again. He gave her his one and only pickup line. "So, are you having fun?" As she talked, he looked into her eyes. Looked like she'd been laughing, or crying, or laughing and crying. He looked deeper still and could sense a disturbance, an electrical storm. He imagined her brain cells flashing, twitching, and jumping like herring being chased by a large carnivore. He wanted to be that carnivore. On their first date, she showed up an hour late, wearing Ray-Bans on an overcast day. "Apologies for my tardiness," Ricky said. "I was up late last night at a Caribbean party. I was the only white person there." She had Randall's attention. They went rollerblading. At one point, he pulled ahead of her, and from behind him, he heard a loud ka-thunk, followed by, "Ah, fuck!" Ricky had slammed into a parked car. Now he was hooked. They bonded hard and fast, but after a few months, they hit that inevitable plateau and began arguing. Then they crossed the 50% mark where the bad times outnumber the good ones. They made an appointment with Dr. Moody. "So what seems to be the problem?" "Oh, he's a neat freak. He's a hypochondriac. He has the worst taste in clothes and music, and he teases me all the time. Please medicate him." He's mentioned the teasing before. There you go, taking his side. That's the type of patriarchal attitude that used to get women locked up in mental hospitals. I knew this was a stupid idea. After the session, Randall called the shrink. Should I bail on this relationship?" "You know I can't give you advice like that." Let me rephrase. If I said I wanted to bail, would you suggest that I stick with it for another week?" "Probably not." Randall's worldview. Dating was pointless. Life was pointless. He had nothing. No hair, no fancy job, no hedge funds. No creepy tattoos, criminal record, or other bad boy cred. He had nothing. Personality inventory for Jackie Chin Rosenthal. Family. At age 5, her father was killed when his little car was run over by a great big car. Hence, Jackie only drives large, muscular vehicles. At age 6, her mother moved to Long Island and married her Jewish internist. Jackie always says, "Oh, that's the cliche of all Long Island cliches. I was raised as a Jap." Pun intended. Jackie has no other siblings or close relatives. Education and career. Jackie always says, "Oh, some college or local school." That kind of vague response in Boston can only mean Harvard. Though Jackie doesn't present as Ivy League material, she has a dark sense of humor, which has been linked to high intelligence. She also has an impressive knowledge of communicable diseases. Jackie has worked as a bartender at Boston's notorious Scotch and Sirloin, inside sales at Boston's notorious Phoenix Adult Classifieds, inside sales at Boston's notorious Fidelity Investments, and she also mentions having had several very odd jobs, but refused to elaborate. Relationship history. As I mentioned earlier, Jackie doesn't date men, she marries them. At age 20, she married her first husband, a musician her age, and divorced him 6 months later. Her second husband was 15 years older and died of breast cancer. Yes, men can get breast cancer. Her third husband was a real estate mogul who she divorced, but is still stalking her. After three marriages, Jackie refers to herself as the Asian Zsa Zsa Gabor. A bit of an exaggeration, as the actress Zsa Zsa Gabor was married 9 times. Jackie's worldview. According to her, the 1980s was her generation's roaring 20s. Things she misses most about the 1980s: 2-for-1 happy hours, 3-for-1 happy hours, and of course, 4-for-1 happy hours. The one thing Jackie despises more than anyone under age 30 are all those little free libraries popping up all over Boston. According to Jackie, all those gross people bringing books from their filthy homes filled with unwashed kids and pets, those books carry scary stuff like chlamydia and crabs. The upshot on Jackie: spotty career and relationship history, coupled with a preoccupation with germs and cliches, all key indicators of dysfunction and criminality. As far as Randall's concerned, she's perfect, and they start dating. After 6 months of dating, here is Randall's progress report. It's mid-March, and we're holding steady at 3 sleepovers a week and having a pretty good time considering what we've been through. Valentine's Day, my birthday, the Patriots not winning the Super Bowl, and the ensuing depression that sets in because there's no more NFL for 7 months. Jackie deserves extra credit for knowing that the Celtics and Red Sox are no substitute for the Patriots. One night when I'm over, Jackie comes down with the flu. Instead of wishing her well and heading out the door, I stay and take care of her. I feed her, I water her, I schlep her to the doctor. She wants me to come into the exam room, but the doctor says, "I'm sorry, only immediate family." Jackie says, "But he's my fiance." What? Back at Jackie's house, I sit vigil as she ignores all of the doctor's advice and instead follows the advice of her mother, who sends a small package of musty herbs and other remedies, some of which I try. Our favorite is the salty sinus flush that we blast into each other's nostrils with a squirt bottle. It generates a searing head rush as the heated liquid shoots up one nostril into the sinuses and exits the other nostril, flushing out a ropey goop that resembles spinach linguine. We have contests to see who can handle the most salty powder and the highest temperatures. We even try adding Tabasco sauce. One night, Jackie comes down with a sloshy cough that keeps us both up at night. Her doctor prescribes codeine cough syrup, which we drink from shot glasses while watching hours of Snagglepuss, Jackass, and the Three Stooges. We polish off a week's worth of codeine in 2 days. Jackie weasels a refill from her doctor, who admonishes, sharing a prescription, even with a fiance, is a crime. Jackie and I agree that not sharing is a bigger crime. By the end of the week, her bedroom is strewn with takeout containers and empties stuffed with cigarette butts. Her bedspread is stained with bong water and something that resembles spinach linguine. Finally, I say to Jackie, "I'm not sure how much more my immune system can take." Jackie says, "I'm sorry, Daddy, I need a hug." I give her a hug and make dinner for the 7th night in a row. The next morning, she's feeling better, and I'm finally free to go and spend the next week on my couch, recuperating. So clearly, they've fallen in love. But as in any love story, the lovers face obstacles to their happiness. For this couple, one of their biggest obstacles is the modern scourge of anxiety. Randall has a generalized anxiety. He's afraid of everything. If his nervous system were a movie, it would go something like this. Jackie, on the other hand, has more specific anxieties. As I mentioned earlier, she has a thing about germs and bugs, and her latest obsession is...
They are called Siafu, the driver ant, a mindless, unstoppable killing machine, dedicated to the destruction of everything that stands in its way.
But one anxiety they both share is something called attachment anxiety. Now, attachment is a psychological term that describes how you connect with other people, particularly in romantic relationships. Some people have a normal attachment style, and these two don't. Jackie is a squid. She's needy and desperate for a relationship, looking for a life preserver, someone to keep her from going under. Famous examples of squids: Cyrano de Bergerac, Vincent van Gogh, Taylor Swift. Randall is a spaceman. He wants to be close to the door. To create space in the relationship, he obsesses on her imperfections, her appearance, her habits, her bodily functions. Famous examples of spacemen: Marcel Proust, J.D. Salinger, the Grinch. So with differing attachment styles, they encounter the crisis. Randall develops insomnia, Jackie develops an ulcer. Since he's never been married, he is obviously the problem, and he goes into therapy. Writers write books to answer their own questions. As someone who's never been married, one of my big questions has always been, how much can you change for someone you love? So I wanted to share some of the research I did in attempting to answer this question for myself and the characters in my book. When we left off, Randall was going into therapy. So he finds a therapist, and the therapist promises to turn Randall into marriage material. And that journey takes up the last 100 pages of my book. And here's some of the research I did in writing those last 100 pages. So the first part of this question was, can you change? And for this, I turned to some research from the National Mental Health Association. According to them, 65% of the people with serious mental illnesses can get better. And since I'm not seriously mentally ill, I'm just your garden variety neurotic, my assumption was I can get better and my characters can get better. The next part of this question was, how much can you change? For this, I turned to some advice from a therapist who once said, the goal in therapy is not to turn an apple into a banana, but to make it a better apple. So my assumption was you can't change the core of who you are, but you can tweak around the edges. Then the question became, okay, how do you go about changing? And for this, I turned to some of my favorite self-help books. Anybody read these, your Erroneous Zones or the games people play? So these were big in the 70s. And back then the trend was assertiveness. So the assumption was the world was full of schmucks and you need to be able to tell them to fuck off. Upon rereading these books now, they seemed a little much. So I turned to another one of my favorite self-help books. If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. So this book takes a different tack. According to this book, you don't need therapists and gurus and Buddhas to fix you, because the answers to all your problems reside inside you. They just need to be teased out. Upon rereading this book, this seemed a little too new agey. So then I turned to some more contemporary research, and I found a treatment for anxiety called desensitization. And the way desensitization works is, say you had a phobia about elevators. What you might do is one day you'd stand outside an elevator. The next day you might stand outside the elevator and push the button. The next day you might stand outside the elevator, push the button, and step in and step out. And what you're doing is gradually increasing your exposure to whatever it is that's making you anxious. So in my book, Randall is a spaceman, so closeness makes him uncomfortable. So his therapist says, okay, you're getting together with Jackie 3 nights a week. We're going to bump it to 4 and eventually 5. And eventually Jackie moves in. Next in my research, I found a treatment for attachment anxiety. And that was have a child. No, thank you. Then in my research, I found something that was popular with celebrities, something called a partners. So the way a partners works, instead of changing the people, you change the configuration of the relationship. So in a partners, these were people in long-term relationships that lived apart. They both had their own dwellings, lots of personal space. Some celebrities who tried this, Jack Nicholson and Angelica Houston, Tim Burton and Helena Bonham Carter. The issue here was these couples eventually broke up. But one couple that seemed to get it right was Mr. and Mrs. Robert Parker. So he was a novelist, and the show Spencer for Hire was based on his books. So what this couple did is they bought a large Victorian in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The wife lived on the top floor, husband lived on the middle floor, and they shared the bottom floor. This worked well until 2010 when Robert Parker died. So next I decided to focus my research on the real issue for myself and in my book, the trade-off between intimacy and independence. And the first thing I found in my research was a study by the Surgeon General in 2023 called The Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation. And according to the Surgeon General, people that were lonely were 26% more likely to die prematurely. Being lonely was the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day or being morbidly obese. So, according to the Surgeon General, too much independence would lead you to an early grave. Then I continue my research and I found experts that claimed the opposite, that independence was more important for mental health, physical health, and personal growth. So this book, Solitude, A Return to the Self, was written in the 1980s, and it was written by a noted British psychiatrist. And in the book, the psychiatrist, his claim is that, yes, again, personal space is very important for personal growth and personal development. And he cited a bunch of famous scientists, artists, and philosophers, some of who either never had romantic relationships, never married, or just required lots of personal space. And among the people he describes in the book, Isaac Newton, Kant, Kafka, Goya, Wittgenstein, and Beatrix Potter. Next, I found this character. Anyone heard of Arthur Schopenhauer, the philosopher? So Schopenhauer was the pessimist's pessimist, the misanthrope's misanthrope. One of his famous quotes was, "Life swings like a pendulum between pain and boredom." He also had an interesting theory on relationships, the porcupine theory. So the porcupine theory held that people were like porcupines, and if you got too close, you would get stuck. So no surprise, Schopenhauer never married, but it's worth noting he lived in the 1800s. He lived to be 72 at a time when most people didn't live past 40. Then I continue my research, and I found more experts claiming that no, independence and solitude were very important for mental and physical health. So this book was called Going Solo, and is written by a noted sociologist, and he was looking into the trend that a lot of Americans were now living alone. In fact, in Manhattan, half of the people lived alone. And in his research, he found that their mental health and physical health was pretty good. Then I found this book, Single at Heart, another noted sociologist. And her claim was, wait a minute. There are some people that are just born single. They're better off single. Then I found this book, Party of One, The Loner's Manifesto. This book was written by a woman who is a loner, and she marries a guy who's also a loner. And one of her favorite times of day is when her husband goes out to get the mail, and she's got the house to herself. Then I found this book, Spinster, and this book, All the Single Ladies. Again, these are all books promoting independence and personal growth, and it's worth noting that many of them were written by women. So at this point, I'm getting confused, because now we've got all the experts claiming, no, the independence was much more important than the prison of intimacy. So I'm going back and forth, and I decided to turn to one of my favorite children's books, because sometimes the simplest answer is the best one. So the book I turned to was The Missing Piece by Shel Silverstein. So this book is about this round creature who's missing a piece, a pizza without a slice. So the creature goes on a journey looking for its missing piece. And on its journey, it meets a friendly worm, it meets a beautiful flower, it meets a gorgeous butterfly, it tries some different pieces, some are too big, some are too small, but eventually the creature finds a perfect fit. It finds its missing piece. But the problem now is the creature no longer has time to talk to friendly worms, sniff beautiful flowers, or talk to gorgeous butterflies. So in the end, the creature bids farewell to its missing piece and continues on its journey. So what have we learned from Shel Silverstein, Arthur Schopenhauer, and the Surgeon General? To answer that, I'd like to quote another of the great minds in the fields of intimacy and relationships. Maybe relationships are less about fixing each other and more about exploring what it means to be together. And that exploration takes up the last third of my book and includes a fringe festival, a fetish conference, and this unique take on long-term relationships. Maybe long-term relationships are not for everyone, and that's okay. And that's okay. And that is okay. Who am I kidding? That's not okay. And in case you haven't figured it out, I am Randall Burns. I am a spaceman. And I do want a relationship, long-term, short-term, something in between. But I haven't had a date in 6 months. I haven't made love to a woman in 5 years. The women that want me, I don't want. The women I want don't want me. And all the chances I've had with Lisa and Lorraine and Laura and Lorianne and Louise and Margaret and Marjorie and Maureen and Amanda and Denise and Debbie and Anne and Karen and Kathy and Jackie, all those chances, and I blew it. And I'm running out of chances. I'm old, I'm fat, my knees are going, my feet hurt, my prostate's too big to pee, my skin looks like hamburger. I can barely do 20 push-ups. And my people are dying. My heroes, just this year, Gene Hackman, Val Kilmer, Sly Stone, Brian Wilson, George Foreman, and my father. He got Parkinson's. Had it for 3 years. One night he fell, his neck jammed against the wall. He couldn't get up. He suffocated. Who knows how long he was sitting there? He died alone. Am I next? And what about my career? My last book, I sent it to 100 agents and 50 publishers, and no one wanted it. My shows, they're hit or miss. In 2014, I got a 2-star review at the Washington Fringe Festival. The reviewer called it excruciating bullshit. And I'm a liar. I'm 66, not 56. And Jackie, she was real too. She gave me the heave-ho for being a liar, a jerk, and a child. I'm going nowhere. You, sitting on your ass, you're pathetic, catching and moaning. Who do you think you are? You think you're the only person in the world with problems? You think you're the only person that feels lonely and alone? Where's your gratitude for all the good things you have? You can still ski, you can lift weights, you can still run for 30 minutes. You don't have lung cancer or heart disease or Alzheimer's. And unlike your father, you don't have Parkinson's. You own a condo, you have an IRA. You've published 2 books and you're writing a 3rd. And you do have a career, performing at fringe festivals. And you can still memorize a 45-minute show. And sometimes you are a liar, a jerk, and a child, like a lot of writers, but you've still got people that love you in spite of it. And you're only 66. That's the new 56. Things could turn around at any moment. Frank McCourt didn't publish his first book until he was 66. Roget didn't publish his thesaurus until he was 72. Norman MacLean didn't publish his one and only book, A River Runs Through It, until he was 74. And you saw the movie and you cried. Now get off your ass. Look the audience in the eye. Finish your show, take your bows, and be grateful for any applause you get.